Today, we're going to talk about a psychological phenomenon that influences almost every financial decision that you make.
Welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, where we talk about the human side of money. Join us as we dive beyond the numbers, unpacking the psychology of money to equip you with the tools you need to be wise in wealth.
I'm Brendan Frazier, Chief Behavioral Officer at RFG Advisory. And if I was to come to you and offer you a coin flip, where if it lands on heads, you win $100, but if it lands on tails, you lose $100, the question is, would you do it? When posed with that question, most people say no. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. The upside's not worth the downside. Now, what if I made it a little bit sweeter? Heads, you win $200, but if we flip the coin that lands on tails, you lose $100. It turns out, believe it or not, that a lot of people in that example still say no, because we hate losing way more than we like winning. And that phenomenon is called loss aversion. And if you're not careful, it's going to quietly, subtly influence almost every financial decision that you make. The insights on loss aversion come from the groundbreaking work of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, two behavioral psychologists who helped redefine how we understand decision-making as a whole. And as they started redefining that, what they realized is that loss aversion is one of the most present biases that we face in decision-making. Their research revealed something fascinating. When we're faced with a gain or a loss, the pain of the loss can dominate the decision, even if the gain is mathematically smarter. Even if the odds of the gain are higher, the pain of the loss will oftentimes drive our decision making. That fear of losing, it actually hijacks the logic. The emotion that we feel is no match for the logical decision. In fact, neuroscience research shows that the part of our brain responsible for calculating prediction errors and anticipating events, the part of the brain that makes these types of decisions, it shows increased activity when we experience both losses and gains, but it lights up even more when it thinks about and experiences losses. Study after study after study continue to confirm what Kahneman and Tversky found. And that is that people require about a 2-to-1 ratio of gains before they'd feel comfortable even risking a loss. In other words, that means most of us would rather not lose $100 than gain $150 or $175 or $180. We overweight the pain of losing. That's called loss aversion. So here are some ways that you'll see loss aversion play out in your life. One common example is investors that refuse to sell their losing stocks, hoping and praying, clinging to the idea that they're going to rebound just to avoid realizing a loss. It'll also impact our careers. You'll see someone, you'll know someone, maybe it's you, that stays in a job longer than they should, longer than they want to, just because they've been there. They may not be happy, but they're passing up on other opportunities, potentially more beneficial opportunities, because of the fear of the risk and uncertainty that comes with changing. Another example comes from military policy, where leaders of the military will sometimes stick with clearly suboptimal strategies rather than admitting a failed course of action. And they do that not because it's logical, but because the admission that they'd made the wrong decision felt like a psychological loss, not just a tactical loss. The key idea here, it goes back to the neuroscience research. It's in our brains, it's neurological, that we treat financial loss like a threat and we avoid it like physical danger. We avoid the pain of loss. Once you're aware of loss aversion, once you know about it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. We talked about some ways that you see it in your life. Let's now look at a few more examples of where you'll see it specifically in your financial life. Example number one, your investing behavior. Things like panic selling during a downturn because you don't want to lose more money, holding on to losing stocks, avoiding doing the sensible thing, the strategic thing that you're supposed to do, and rebalancing every quarter or every year. Another example is retirement spending. Maybe you've saved your entire life, now you're retired, but now that it's time to spend, it feels like a loss every time you take money out of that savings account, the one that you had built up for years and years in yours. A third example is in the realm of insurance decisions when it comes to protecting our wealth and our assets, specifically when you're over-insuring for peace of mind, paying more than you need to just simply to avoid a rare loss that the odds don't even justify. Last, number 4, is just missed opportunities. Not taking smart risks or investing in opportunities or yourself, things that offer tremendous upside because the idea of falling or the idea of losing is just simply too uncomfortable. So here's the good news. While you can't eliminate loss aversion, like we said, while no one's immune to it, you can work around it. There are things you can do to help prevent loss aversion from driving your financial decision making. So here are some ways to do that. Number 1, probably most importantly, is just to name it and recognize it. If you're hesitating or you're feeling anxious or nervous about a financial decision, just sit there and ask yourself, am I avoiding this because it feels like a loss, even if it makes sense? Is there any part of me in this decision-making process that's letting the fear of loss drive the way that I want to make this decision? If you've watched this series, if you've watched this show for any length of time, you've heard us say before, awareness is key. Before you can make change, you have to be aware of what's going on. So name it and recognize it. That's number 1. Number 2 is making pre-commitment plans. Pre-commitment plans are plans that are made when you're in a cold, rational, logical state where you know exactly what you're supposed to do. You map out the plan then so that you know what to do and you're directing your course of action when you get to the point that you're in a more emotional, hot state. You want to make decisions in a cold, rational state, not an emotional, hot state. And so by committing to the plan when you're in a logical state, you stick to it when you're emotional. So when loss aversion kicks in, you can be reminded of the things that you're supposed to do. Things like making your investing decisions in advance, coming up with a plan in advance of when you'll sell a losing stock or when you'll sell during a downturn, when you're going to rebalance on a quarterly or annual basis. Or when it comes to retirement, have a plan made in advance for how much you're going to take out and from which account, so that way it feels less painful when you actually get there, so that emotions don't drive your decisions in the moment. Number 3, reframe the loss. So instead of, I just lost $10,000, or if I do this, I might lose $10,000, $20,000, whatever it is, reframe it and say, there is the possibility for loss, but that's part of the plan. If I'm invested in the market, there is market risk and that might happen. I want to counteract the fear of loss with a really clear vision of the future and what's possible. Number 4, get an outside perspective. Get outside of your mind and find somebody, whether it's a friend, family member, or best of all, find an advisor to talk through this with, to be able to zoom out and have a reasonable, logical conversation, to remove loss aversion and the emotion that comes with it, to make the best decision for your situation. Lastly, number 5, track your wins and not just your losses. If our brain's wired to focus on and hone in on the losses, we have to counter that by focusing on the wins. So always go back as frequently as you can, look at and track your financial progress over time. It's easy to forget the progress that's been made along the way. So zoom out, look back at where you started to where you are now. And by focusing on tracking progress, it retrains your brain to focus on growth rather than loss. Ultimately, loss aversion's not a flaw. It's just simply a part of being human. And once you can see it, you can catch it. Once you can catch it, you can make a better, more confident decision around your finances. As always, if you want to talk more, if you want to discuss, if this sparked any thoughts or questions, reach out to your advisor and let them know. Until next time, stay wise and well.